Okay, so Ed, I have to open up our conversation and say thank you for everyone who's watching. I had the privilege and honor to interview you for the MTV VMAs. And I remember saying, hey, listen, when you're back in town, we'd love to have you. Please come by Hot 97, come to my show. And you said, okay, yeah, let me see what I can do. And like, I'm not really believing what you have to say. I'm gonna be honest with you, just because I've been in this game for such a long time and people say they're gonna do something and they never do it. I'm not kidding you. I thought you forgot. And then SNL came around and I was like, kind of in the back of my mind, like, he said he was gonna stop by, but never mind. You know, he's probably busy. And I literally get an email from my program director, PO, like, hey, I'm putting these names down for Ed Sheeran when he comes in to do an interview with you. Is there anyone else you want to add to the security list? I was like, wait. I asked him. I first said, is he coming in for me? Because, like, nobody told me.
And this is my first time on Hot 97 as well. So this is the...
my gosh.
Yeah, breaking my cherry.
Wait. Thank you so much for keeping your word.
No, of course. I mean, like, as I was saying off mic, like, my dad was strict with me when I was younger, and like, you don't lie, you keep your word, and you're never late. And those were three things that were just drilled into me from a very, very young age. And I find myself sometimes in. I did a Teenage Cancer Trust gig in England. I got rung up by the guy that was doing it, who's, you know, quite an outspoken British singer who. He just says how he feels, and he says, can you play it this year? And I said, no, I'm in Australia, but I'll play it next year. And he came out in the press and he was like, all these guys are f***ing lying to me. They can't even do these charity gigs. They're saying they're in Australia. And I was like, I said I'd do it next year, and then I did do it. And then he did the same thing. He was like, oh, no one keeps their word, and blah blah blah. But I do, like, I just like, if you'd have asked me to be on your show and I couldn't have done it, I'd tell you I can't do it. But if I said I'm going to do it, I'm here.
How do you stay humble? I'm just curious. Like, you are a global superstar, so much success. You didn't have to remember to come and do my show. You don't have to show up early and do all these things and take the time to really, I don't know, just hang out and just be, hey, nice, I see how you treat your team. Like, all those things matter. And
I'd never take it for granted. It took so long for me to get here, and so many people slammed doors in my face and wouldn't. No, no one wanted to interview me 12 years ago. So now people actually do. I'm like, yeah, I don't take it for granted. And especially now, like, you'd think after years and years of success, you'd sort of sit back a little bit. But I still feel like a new artist. I feel like every time I release, I'm trying to convince people to rediscover my music. And yeah, you can never take it for granted. I think the moment you take it for granted is the moment it stops being fun, because you release a song and you're just like, whatever, that'll be big, you know.
I mean, here to that point, I was just reading up some of your stats. Your newest album, Equals. Can we just talk about how it already has over 1 billion streams on Spotify? It just came out.
Yeah. Well, I had Bad Habits had done quite well before then, and yeah, I don't know. I'm like, this out.
Wait, hold on.
Yeah,
Wait,
no, I know. No, I know.
1 billion streams?
Do you know, I find it very difficult nowadays to like figure out what success is. I'm kind of like, if it's in a sphere where people are still listening to it and songs are being played on the radio, I must be doing something right. But every time I release an album, the goalposts change, you know, like the way that people consume music. TikTok didn't really exist when I released my last album. I mean, I think it was called something different, but it definitely wasn't like at the forefront of culture. And every time I release, there's a new way that people are taking in music. And so, you know, when I released Divide, the songs would fly up the charts and peak at 1, and then they might like drop down, whereas now my songs will go in at like 5 and just stay there. And I had to, when that first happened, I was like, oh my god, like, is this the end? But then I just feel like this is the next stage of my career where this is the way that people consume my music, and that's
I don't know if it's I just think there's so many different mediums, and I think people are just enjoying you, but I think it's like solid.
Yeah, really. So
Right?
I mean, I released Bad Habits almost 6 months ago, and it entered in at 5, and then it went to 4, and then it went to 2, and then it went to 3, and then it went to 5, and then it went to 2, and then it's just stayed in the 10. And I've had songs that have peaked at number 1 and then dropped off the next week. So like, you know,
What do you prefer?
I prefer, I never ever judge a hit by the week or mate, week one sales. I mean, Divide's week one sales in America were not the biggest week one sales of that year, but that album now has sold 25 million copies, and it was the biggest selling album of that year. So I never trust the initial
I agree.
rush. I'm like, where is it in a year's time? That's when you know what a hit is or what a hit album is, when you can see the actual consumption of it in a year. Because everything nowadays is sort of, because it's so instant and people want the next thing and the next thing and the next thing, people only really focus on week one or like the first number, the first peak. Blinding Lights, The Weeknd, it's been the biggest song of the last 2.5 years, but I think that entered at number 13 and it dropped to like number 50 the week after, and then it built and built and built and built and built. But if you were to judge it on the first peak, yeah.
Ooh.
I know.
But you can't let it get to you. I don't feel like it does. I feel like it's just
you have to keep your ego in check, I think, sometimes, and be like, why do I do this?
Who's that person that helps you keep your ego in check in your life?
My wife. She's very much she would like make me sort of see the wider picture, rather than I focus in on so many small details that she makes me see the wider picture. And yeah, I don't know. And I think ego is actually a very, very important thing for anyone to have. But I think in terms of confidence, like if you don't have ego when you walk on stage, how are you going to entertain a crowd? Because you go, I can't do this. But you just know you need to know when to switch the ego on and switch the ego off. So before I go on stage, I switch it on. I walk out on stage and I go, I'm going to entertain everyone for the next 2 hours. You're like, I'm going to entertain you. And then when I get off stage, I switch it off and I go back to being me.
Yeah.
But I think you have to have a switch.
Right.
Yeah.
How does your daughter feel about you? Does she know what you do? Like, is she too young yet? Does she understand that you're just this global superstar? Does she have any idea?
No, she's 14 months. She knows I sing because I sing to her. But yeah, it's an interesting time for her because she's born in a pandemic, so she didn't meet anyone for the first sort of 6 months, and now she's meeting people. She's very sociable.
Is she?
Yeah, she loves people.
This is so interesting because some kids don't want to socialize, you know, being in this pandemic, but she wants to.
Well, as soon as we were out of lockdown in England, I kind of forced her into it. So we would go and hang out with mates, and I would make sure one friend held her and then another friend held, and she got used to it. I never wanted her to be the sort of shielded child that had never met anyone. The first flight we ever got on, I had a friend pass away in March that lived in Australia, and our first flight was a 27-hour flight with her, and she'd never seen another human because we'd gone from lockdown to on this flight. So she spent the whole time, 27 hours, just kind of looking around, being like, "Who are these people?" It's wild. Yeah, it's wild. It's wild, the things we take for granted as well. I saw her feel rain on her face the first time the other day and just be like, what on earth is that?
And you could tell this was her first time. Like, you could tell as a parent that, she's learning. She's taking it in.
It was funny giving her a lemon for the first time as well.
What did she do?
Well, because there were there's hilarious videos on YouTube of babies eating lemons and going like that. And I gave it to her and she loved it and she just carried on just eating it. And there was no facial expression whatsoever. So she's obviously into lemons.
That is so cute. Yeah. What's something that you've learned about her that, makes her different than you and your wife? Because me not being a parent, assume that kids are either like their mom or dad or whatever. And it's kind of like, no, they have their own personalities. They're doing their own thing.
Well, I think what's lovely about babies is they have no social skills. So there's no embarrassment about anything. They just do what they like or eat what they like. Or, she by the end of a meal, she's covered in food and doesn't really care,
Right.
And it's kind of nice.
Yeah.
It's kind of nice.
Very free.
Yeah.
I love it. Now, I don't want to assume, but is Sandman about her?
Yeah. That was I wanted the record to hint that I was a father, but not be totally about it. I didn't want to just...
Sweet.
Thank you. I didn't want to make a whole record about being a dad. So that was the one song that ticks the box for me.
I love it. Do you think about what that conversation is going to be like with her? Like, hey, I made this song for you.
Yeah. I think it'll be a lot more awkward if we have more kids and then they expect one on each album. So I've got to figure out how that works.
Have you thought of this already?
Yeah, because I mean,
the pressure's on.
Well, because when she was born, all the gifts we got were like, they had her name on it. So the toy box in our house has her name on it. But I know if we have another kid, the kid will be like, "Why is Lyra's name on it?" And
Like where's mine?
Exactly. Yeah, I think you got to balance it. Have you got siblings?
Yes.
Did you, when you were kids, did you kind of all get the same things but in different?
I got all the hand-me-downs for sure, and it was like that's just what it is. Even if their name is on it, this is what you're gonna play with.
Did your mum? I remember my like school sports kit. They like
write your initials.
So yeah. And mine was always my brother's. Always, always.
This is an exciting time for you.
Yeah.
How has fatherhood changed you?
Well, I think it's a knock-on effect of I started going to bed earlier because I would wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning, and then when you go to bed earlier, you stop really drinking heavily. I used to drink quite heavily, and I used to stay up quite late, go to bed about 5 o'clock in the morning. So that stops, and then you start getting healthier because of that. And then when you're up early in the morning, there's not really much to do other than play with your daughter and feed her porridge or whatever. And I have a gym at home.
Nice.
With a box of toys in. So it gets to 5 o'clock, and I'm like, right, let's go. I'll plonk you in front of the box of toys, and then I'll do a workout. So then I start becoming healthier. And then you sort of see the benefits of that. You sleep better. You then eat better because you actually want to be in shape. You buy different clothes. You look in the mirror, and you're like, oh, I don't hate myself today. And like, there's just been a knock-on effect of being a dad that's all been very, very positive. Whereas before, when you have no responsibility, you just, I don't know, I feel like my body took a battering because I would just be like, well, tonight I'm going to get and then I'm going to eat fast food tomorrow because I feel like whereas there's not really that anymore.
You know what's so interesting is that I feel like most parents say that they miss sleep. That they, that's the one thing they're deprived of.
Oh, yeah. I mean, like, I'm in New York now, and everyone is jet lagged, and I finished SNL at 2 a.m. and then my daughter woke up at 4.
Right.
Like, that's definitely like...
It's rough.
Yeah, it's delirious. But I prefer getting up at 4 than going to bed at 4.
Oh.
Personally.
Nice.
Yeah.
How was SNL? Because I know that you were talking about it, I think, on Howard Stern's show, talking about how it seemed like a bigger ordeal because, yes, you tested positive for COVID-19, but obviously you were in the clear, which is why you did,
I felt there was
SNL.
lots of sharks circling as well, waiting for my slot to become open, and then they could take it.
Okay, I'm glad you said it, because I was like, I think what happened was people were plotting to get that slot.
Yeah, and I'm very intrigued to see who, because I got a lot of peers.
Ooh.
And so there was some stuff in the press. I was like, yeah, actually, I probably reckon that their team would go and take that. It's business at the end of the day, isn't it?
It's business. Yeah. But there was never a question. So,
Yeah. Well, no, there was, because in England, you isolate for 10 days, but in America, you isolate for 14 days. So when I got out of isolation in England, I was like, oh, I'm able to fly to America and do my stuff. But then what actually had to happen is I had to cancel the rehearsal on Friday and fly in Saturday.
Oh.
I think I landed at like 2 p.m. on Saturday. So they were a bit twitchy about it.
Okay. Yeah. I thought it was like a whole plot against you. I was like, see, they're trying to take you down.
No, but it was funny how like we were talking to SNL about making it happen, but there'd be certain stories that would appear in the press that I think were from other camps just basically being like SNL scrambling to replace Ed Sheeran. And I'm like, we're on the phone to them now. They're not trying to do that.
We're talking rehearsals.
Yeah,
That's
exactly. But anyway, I'm glad I got to do it.
Oh, yeah, no, for sure. And does it feel, being that you've done so many of these things time and time again, but do you get excited to still perform on SNL? And
yeah, because I think the gravitas around SNL, I remember the first time getting booked on it and everyone on my team being over the moon and being like, oh my God, we've got this massive like TV moment. I remember that. And just because I'm further on in my career now does not mean that the TV moment is not still as massive. And it's such a cultural thing that the whole country talks about, and everyone knows who's performing every single week, who's hosting every single week. Right. So it's super, super exciting. And I've only ever done it 3 times, so it's still relatively new to me.
Do you get nervous before you get on stage?
The first time I did SNL, I didn't know it was live. I didn't know it was called Saturday Night Live. I thought it was called SNL.
Right.
So I arrived, and I was I thought the rehearsal was the pre-record,
right.
and then they were like, no, it's live. This was like 7 years ago when I first did it. But I remember because in England all the late night shows are pre-recorded. So
interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. Did you get nervous? Were your hands sweating?
100%.
Okay.
Yeah, I remember because I had a song called Sing that I did with Pharrell, and the whole chorus is in falsetto. And falsetto as a singer, especially as I used to smoke at that point as well, it's not always a given. So sometimes you can go out on stage and your falsetto just isn't there. So I remember being very nervous about that.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Do you still get nervous still before big performances or not really?
Not hugely. Not
Got it.
hugely. I get nervous. Do you know what I get nervous before now? Long interviews. Where not necessarily this, but like if I'm
I was like,
going
not
on.
me.
No,
Okay.
but everyone in my team was nervous for me to go on Howard because sometimes Howard can make you say stuff like
Sure.
I remember first going on the Howard Stern show, and I've actually got to know him as a friend now, so I feel like he
Nice.
goes a little bit easier on me. Like he's not trying to catch me out. But I remember going on, and my dad said to me, he went, "Look, don't talk about religion, don't talk about sex, and don't talk about money. These are the three things that you need to and politics.
Right.
These are four things that you need to avoid in interviews like this because they." And I said this stupidly to Howard before we started, and I was like, my dad said, "Don't talk about religion, don't talk about politics, don't talk about sex, don't talk about money because those are the things you can get caught up on." Howard's like, "Yeah, smart guy." And then throughout the interview, just like subconsciously, I didn't even realize it was happening, but we talked about all those things,
Right.
and just went into politics and religion and money and sex, and but yeah, so I get worried before like long, in-depth interviews because nowadays
Right.
context
Right.
disappears. This is what I don't do print interviews anymore. I only do stuff like this. So context, if there's ever anything that blows up on Twitter or Instagram or blah blah blah, you can always listen back to something and hear the actual way that I said it because
Right.
sometimes a quote that's just quoted and put online, you don't know what happened before that or what happened after it, or
Right.
you know.
Do you feel, is that, I don't know, I guess I don't want to say the hardest part of what you do for a living, but it's probably one of the tedious things to be.
I think it's damaging the way that people get to know artists now because all the biggest artists in the world now just don't do interviews, and that's the new norm. And so I think it's, you know, someone makes a record and they go, "Oh, I want to know what the artist thought about that record." They can't anymore.
Right.
I mean, it adds more mystery into it, and the biggest artists in the world now are super mysterious because you don't know anything about them.
Right.
But I think it's a shame that everyone's so terrified.
Yeah.
Because I'm terrified. I'm
Right.
terrified. I mean, like you can slip up so easily nowadays just by being phrasing something wrong. You
Yeah.
know?
For you as an artist, does that make you, I don't know, get worried to put your art out because it's being judged by so many people, even though you're used to it? But is that something that crosses your mind as an artist?
Yeah, I mean, it's being an artist is a vulnerable position anyway, because you're putting your thoughts and feelings into, and sometimes quite embarrassing thoughts and feelings into a song,
Right.
and then releasing it into the world. And some people get it, and some people don't. But I don't ever like releasing. I don't like releasing music, but I love performing music, and I can't really
Interesting.
perform music unless I release it. But every time I release an album, the release week is always the worst week of the year because you're just like, you're battered. You sort of go, "Here's something that I really love," and then you put it out there, and everyone
Yeah.
goes. But then that week passes, and then people start getting into the music, and
Right.
everyone who doesn't like it moves on to stuff that they do like, and everyone that does like it sticks with it.
Right.
You know, and that's so. So last week I was just there.
Don't talk to me numbers.
Just literally for a week, just like it's gonna be over, it's gonna be over, it's gonna be over, and then this week's begun, and now the dust has settled, the album's out, my fans like it, we're gonna go on tour, and that's kind of it. And I'm sure every artist feels this way.
Yes.
You know, no one ever feels great on their release week. No one ever puts out something because there's always something, even if it gets like mad reviews, like
Sure.
there'll be something. There'll be something.
Why is it that we focus, here it is, thousands and millions of great reviews, right? Comments from fans and people saying how much they love your music, but it's like that one comment that just sticks out and you're just like,
Well, I've never been a review darling, ever. I've always, from my very first album, I've never really been rated by, and it hurt me on my first record because all the music magazines that I bought or the blogs that I'd read trashed my album. So I was kind of like, but then people power, man. Like I don't care what anyone says about my. I just sold 2.5 million tickets in Europe, so there's 2.5 million people that are coming to gigs that like my music,
Absolutely.
and that far outweighs 15 bad reviews. Tickets are the key to knowing whether people actually like you. It's not like trending topic or anything. It's bums on seats. It's like people coming to a show to sit, because there's loads of artists I listen to, but there's a handful that I would actually pay to go and see. Take a time out of my day to like drive somewhere and then go to. So I think that's where you know whether you're actually liked or not.
how about for you? Who are some artists that you would pay to go and see and drive hours to go and be in attendance for?
Mate, it's a handful. I think the last big gig I went to was Alicia Keys. I think she was the last one, and she's phenomenal. And Yeba is someone I would go to go and see. I have been to a Drake show that I enjoyed. I don't really get out to shows that much. What was the last show I went to?
Pre-pandemic, of course, right? Because the pandemic stopped the whole world.
I'm trying to think.
Was there someone you're just like, oh, I need to get tickets. I need to, and hopefully even have an opportunity to even meet them.
Yeah. I don't really know. I don't really know. Literally, I'm saying the last gig I can remember going to was Alicia Keys, and that was 2017. Wow. Yeah,
Okay, it's been a minute.
I don't get out a lot. I mean, I guested at shows. I guested on a Travis Scott show in 2019 and a Khalid show 2019, and Stormzy is an amazing UK rapper. Yeah, Coldplay.
Got
but
it.
I guested with them as well. So in terms, Alicia Keys was the last show I went to and didn't sing at.
When you're at a show, are you just like, oh, I want to be performing right now? Or can you actually enjoy the show as a fan?
It depends. I think I remember going to see Bon Iver and being like, I'm just gonna sit and enjoy it. Like I really. But there's some gigs where you want to jump up on stage, and sometimes I remember going to see Bruno Mars in like Louisville in like 2013. As a fan to watch him, and I sort of turned up and he's like, "Yo, Ed, you gonna get up on stage tonight?" And I was like, "Yes, I will." Yes. So you always kind of hope for that.
That's so awesome.
Yeah.
I want to ask you about Overpass Graffiti, and I want to talk about your videos because they are so creative.
Thank you. I can't take credit for all of them.
Okay. So, but they have to run it by you, and you have to say, "Yeah, I'm down to do this. Yeah, I'm down to put on a whole entire." I don't know, like it almost feels like a different person when I'm watching you in these videos.
Well, I never wanted to be in my music videos. My first album, if you go back and look at the videos, I'm not in them. I make tiny cameos where I just sort of like pop up because I never liked the way I looked, and I always thought it would hold me back because no label wanted to sign me because I was not a marketable. I was a fat ginger white kid who rapped with an acoustic guitar, and they just on paper that just doesn't work. So when it started to blow up, I was very much no one knew my face. The first video I did, I got an amazing actress in it. The second video I did, there was a guy that did sign language. Third video I did, I got Rupert Grint from Harry Potter to play me. Fourth video I did, I had a girl who was basically playing a fallen angel, and I was just in a cafe. And then the sing video is me as a puppet, and then the don't video is a dancer. So like I was just not in them. And then I did Thinking Out Loud, and the only reason I wanted to do that was I knew the song was big, but I knew that everything then was about viral videos. You have a viral video,
right?
And I was like, the only way I'm going to have a viral video is if there's something in it that makes people go, ooh, that's a bit weird. I need to share that.
Right.
And I feel because I look the way I do, and I'm not a very I haven't got much natural rhythm in terms of like dancing. And I was like, I'm going to dance for this music video. And I'm going to learn how to ballroom dance. And that'll be the music video. And everyone in the world that knows who I am will watch it and go, whoa, that's weird. Let me share that. And that's what made the song blow up. So since then, I've been way more open to doing music videos, as long as it's something that can, become viral or be memeable or whatever. There has to be a reason for it. Because at the end of the day, I'm a musician. I'm a singer. I'm not a music video guy. So if I'm going to do a music video, it has to be to make the song bigger, so more people hear the song.
For Overpass Graffiti, you're hitchhiking in it. Have you ever hitchhiked in life?
Yeah. Yeah.
What?
Yeah, I've done lots of things like that.
No.
Yeah, lots of things. I didn't have a house for about 4 years. I just sofa surfed. I used to go on stage at gigs, and if you go to London, chances are you'll bump into someone that I slept at their house. Because I used to be on stage at a gig, play to a crowd, and then I'd say, by the way, I haven't got anywhere to sleep tonight. If anyone has a sofa, and it always worked. Every single there was always one person that'd be like, fuck it, come back, let's have some beers and crash.
Have you ever had a bad experience?
Yeah, of course. Mate, I remember getting to a house and the guy was a hoarder, and he'd hoarded all these newspapers. And I remember walking in and it was like cat piss and newspapers and blah, blah. And I remember walking in being like, I'm good. I'm good. Because there wasn't anywhere to sleep apart from like cat piss soaked newspaper.
So what do you do in that moment? Do you just...
So we have 24-hour... actually, no, we didn't at the time. I was going to say we do have 24-hour tubes in London, but what I did then is we do have 24-hour bars. So I'd go into a bar and I'd drink till like 6 o'clock in the morning till the subway opened.
Wow.
And then there was this line called the Circle Line that just goes round and round and round. There's no
Wow.
stop. So then I'd go on there and I'd catch 5 hours sleep or whatever before going back on. I smelt really bad back then. My socks were like, you could like.
Oh no.
Yeah, they were bad.
It's okay. It's part of the journey, though.
Yeah, I don't regret it, and I think it was less so in America because I came over to America having had success in England. But when
Right.
I started really snowballing my success in England, there's so many of these stories came out that it like solidified the authenticity of it because the whole thing was like traveling busker, and then as it started getting bigger, everyone was like, "Well, yeah, he crashed at my house, and I used to like tour." And then not have anywhere to shower. So then I would say to someone, I'll do a gig in your house at like 10 o'clock in the morning for breakfast and a shower. So I'd go and play to like 5 people. And all of these stories came out when I first became successful, basically.
Wow. Do they DM you? Do they send you messages? People that you've crashed at? Like
No, but I bump into them every now and then. I
That
bump
is
into
so
because I'm out and about in England. So I do bump into them every now and then. Yeah. Just like so people would be like, "Oh, I saw you at this place, or you crashed on my friend's couch. You did this." Like those stories still happen. But then again, this is like 13 years ago as well, so lot of time has passed.
Wow. So fast forward to now, you were just sharing with me that this was your first Knicks game that you just went to. Courtside,
No,
right?
my first. I've been to one. I went Knicks Celtics in like 2013, but I did in a
this
box
is first
watching.
courtside.
First courtside, yeah, first courtside.
My bad. How was that? How was that
Incredible.
experience?
Well, I like American sports, but I often find there's a lot of like waiting because there's always commercial breaks. But yesterday was the first time I felt it was actually fast paced.
Yeah.
Because even in the commercial breaks, they only sort of break for like a little bit and then carry on. So because in England it's 45 minutes, then a break, then 45 minutes, so it's constant sport, and I really enjoyed the constant sport element of it.
And you ran into Papoose. I saw that.
Yeah.
That was a cool moment.
Really cool, really cool. So he's like US rap, like UK rap now is the forefront of culture, but sort of 15 years ago, everything was influenced by the States, and he was just always one of the biggest rappers in England that we'd listen to.
That's so amazing to me.
But I find like because I saw his post where he was like he said that I sort of went up to him and I said that I really liked his music, and I find that no one ever really does that to me, and I found that when I like a song, I'll like find the person's email and I'll just email them and be like, hey, I like the song, and I find myself if I'm in a situation and I see someone that I admire, like why not just go up to them? Like what's the worst thing that could happen? I walked up to him and he was actually really pleased that I did so. Like because sometimes you would be nervous to do that because what if it's like a bad response? But I feel like as long as it's just always good energy, what can people say?
And very genuine. Well, it's to the first part of our conversation is that you're so humble, you're so nice. You just, hey, I'm a fan. Like you don't care about how it's gonna look or what's the worst case scenario.
Well, it's honesty. I do like his music, so I should tell him I like his music. You know,
Love
there's
it.
not like I find I've never gone wrong with it. Whenever I've felt that or gone up to anyone, it's always been great. It's always been great.
Have you ever been starstruck? Have you met anybody and you're just like, wow, this is someone I grew up loving. They know me. They know who I am.
I feel like anyone that has ever been in the same sort of orbit as Beyonce, if they say that they weren't starstruck when they first met them, I think they're lying, you know. I remember meeting her for the first time. I was doing a Stevie Wonder tribute, and what was mad about that situation is they said I'd covered Master Blaster for a TV show in England called Jules Holland, and they said to me, "What do you want to play for the Stevie Wonder tribute?" And I was like, "Oh, can I do Master Blaster?" And they were like, "Ooh, no, Beyonce's doing Master Blaster." And I was like, "No worries, I'll do like Sir Duke or something like that." And then I got called 2 days later by the people doing the Grammy thing, and they were like, "Beyonce wants to sing with you," and I was like, "Oh, wow." And I remember turning up for the rehearsals. It was me, Gary Clark Jr. and Beyonce, and we were playing with Greg Fillinganes and Stevie Wonder's band, and just feeling like out of my depth because I'm not that great of a musician or a performer. Like I can do what I can do, but like those guys are like peak. But being made to feel so welcome and so by the time I got to walk on stage feeling like I belonged, which is something that like blew my mind. like I've had a lot of achievements in my life, and
Sure.
I have a lot of like. I have a pub at home and it has awards and plaques and blah blah blah. But if anyone says like, "What's the coolest thing you've done?" I always show them that video, because it's me. She's the peak performer of our times. Gary Clark Jr. is one of the best guitarists who ever lived. Stevie Wonder's front row watching. Jay-Z's watching. Pharrell's watching. And there's this video online of just like Ed from Suffolk walking on stage and being like, "Hey, yeah, what's up? Yeah, I'm just going to play." And it's bonkers. It's bonkers. And it was a wonderful night. It was a wonderful night. And I really felt like that was the first time in my career where I felt accepted by the higher echelon. Because like I'd had like a couple of hits on radio, and I was kind of at award shows and stuff like that. But after that point, after that day, was when you sort of go into like the next level of, like a couple of months after that, Rolling Stones had me on stage, and then I was meeting Paul McCartney and going for dinner with this person and this person. And then I just sort of felt like I was in, you know? And I'd never felt in before.
And now you're in. And now you have calls every day from Elton John. I saw that. I was like, this is crazy right now.
Well, Elton's done that for a long time. I've known Elton for 11 years. I was signed to his management company originally. So he's always been a mentor to me. But he's great. He's great. But yeah, I kind of feel in, but I also feel out. I think because I live in the middle of the countryside in England, I never really get. I think if I lived in Los Angeles, I would feel in. But I'm so rarely anywhere where anyone is that I never see anyone.
So you're based out in the UK?
Yeah, I live 3 hours outside of London.
Okay.
So, like, if you want to come visit me, you have to really make an effort.
It's like it's far. Listen, if you ever put the invite, I'm there, because
When are you ever in England, though? Do you come a lot?
I do. Like, I'm always asking, like, what's happening out there? Should I be out there? Should I not?
When you come out, so the only thing I'll say is don't get takeout, because if someone recommends restaurants to you and you get takeout, it always ends up like being cold or whatever. Like Cardi B came over to London, and she's on the same record label that I'm signed to, and she was like, "British food sucks," and I was like, wait, I'm not having that. Go to this restaurant tonight. And she was like, "You sure?" And then what she did is she ordered it to wherever she was, and it was cold by the time she turned up. So now she's doubled down on it and being like, "Ed Sheeran sent me to this restaurant and it sucked," and blah blah blah. And yeah, so all I'm saying is, if I recommend a restaurant, just go and eat in the restaurant.
Don't do takeout.
Yeah, because it's never going to be as good takeout. Fries are all soggy, like the chicken's cold. Yeah. I felt so bad though, because now she's just cut off British cuisine forever.
Sure.
She's
Don't
just
get
like,
recommendations from Ed Sheeran, guys.
Exactly, mate. She was so passionate about it as well.
I can talk to you day and night. I know you're busy. I know.
No, we good. We can carry.
Can we? I don't want to.
Yeah, let's do.
Okay.
Let's finish it too.
Okay, for
10
sure.
more.
Okay, so I want to ask you a little bit when it comes to love a little bit, because here you are, you're married, you have a family. What are some, I guess, best piece of tips, best practices in a relationship? Anyone who's in a relationship, doesn't have to be married or not.
Well, as I
how
said,
do you make up after an argument?
Well, honesty and knowing that you have made up the last arguments. I think it's like my wife knows everything about me. I have nothing to hide. So I just like honesty and having nothing to hide, and also like remembering the last argument you had that you thought was the worst one, and knowing, well, we got through that one. And the more and more you get through, like even my best friends, like I know my best friends are my best friends because we have conflict and because we make up. If we're friends, and you've done something to offend me, and I just stop speaking to you, that means that we were never friends, because I don't want to mend our relationship.
Wow.
But when you're having a heated argument with your partner, it means you care. Because if you didn't care, you just go,
bye.
Yeah, exactly. So you have to view it like that and be like, we're arguing for a reason. We will get to the other side of it. It doesn't seem like that now. It seems like we both want to kill each other. But once we're out the other side, we're stronger, you know?
Yeah, that's a great way to look at it.
My parents have been married 37 years, and
wow.
There were times when we were growing up where they would argue, and me and my brother would be like, "Oh my God," but then they'd make up, and it would seem like they were even stronger. And that's what a healthy relationship is with friends. I had an uncomfortable conversation with one of my best guy friends the other day, and he brought up something that had upset him And we talked through it, and then by the end of the conversation, he's like, "I just feel closer to you now, you know, and I'm glad that you heard me and I heard you, and then that was that." So I think just honesty. Never let stuff fester. You know, when you let stuff fester, it just builds and builds and builds, and then it actually becomes a bigger problem than it was to begin with. Like if we had a problem, I would tell you instantly, and then work out, even if it was awkward, because it'd be way more awkward in 2 weeks, because you'd go,
for sure.
You go, "Why didn't you tell me 2 weeks ago?"
Right.
Now it's even weirder.
And now I'm avoiding you. Now I don't even want to look at you, and I feel like this resentment is building up.
Exactly. Honesty is the best policy, always.
What would you say is the biggest misconception about you?
That I'm stat driven. I think I did an interview for GQ back in like 2017. I get quite obsessive with things, and I think that I think to be creative, you have to have a very sort of like weird brain. And there was this interview where I was sort of looking at stats and figures and getting. I don't really know, but I think people think that that's like a financial thing, but it's basically if I've made an album, I want the most people in the world to hear it because I'm that proud of it. So I think there's this misconception that I'm calculating to create songs that, you know, I feel like some people heard this album and they thought that they felt tricked into feeling emotion, and they felt that was calculated. And I'm like, no, all these things happened. My friend did die. I did get married. I did have a daughter. Like all of these things is real emotion that's coming out of me. So if you're feeling it, it's because you're feeling it. It's not because I'm trying to design a certain way. So I feel like that's a misconception, but I feel that I hopefully am going to have another 10, 15 years of my career, and all of these things just sort of like slide away, and the music is there that remains. You know,
Absolutely.
there's so many misconceptions that would have been like Elton John's had a 50-year career. You know, in the 70s, people looked at him differently. The 80s, people looked at him differently. The 90s, there's always been something. And now he's in this sort of rarefied atmosphere of he's Elton John, and he's got this back catalogue and like whatever. Like no one. So I think that, there are so many artists nowadays that even like 5, 6 years ago, people had misconceptions about.
Right.
But that starts to fall away the more and more you just keep releasing good music, I think.
If there's an artist out there who's looking at your journey, who's heard your stories about, you know, crashing it on different people's sofas, and they really want to make it, what best piece of advice you would share with them?
Don't be afraid of failure. Failure is nowadays seen as this embarrassing thing that if you flop, that sometimes people go, "Oh my God, that guy's like..."
Right.
But the biggest thing, you can't learn anything from success, basically. You learn everything from failure. The reason I am where I am now is because I've constantly failed, and I've constantly learned how to not fail next time. If you just continually go like this for the whole of your career, eventually there's a crash. If you're sort of going like this and you're making your way and you learn more and more and more. And I think that nowadays, because it's social media and because everything's week one orientated and everything's like chart position orientated, people are scared to fail, but to learn how to succeed, you have to fail. So I would say to new artists, like, it's not about releasing something and it getting massive instantly, or like being, you know, stuff instantly taking off. It's about trying something and like it not working, and then trying something else, and then maybe that doesn't work, and then trying something else. You have to always pick yourself back up, dust yourself off, and go for it. The thing that I don't understand in the music industry is like there's sports teams in England, right? With the football teams, you've got Manchester City, Man United, Chelsea, blah blah blah. There's like 6 amazing teams in England. Only one of them's number one at one point, and the rest sort of lose week in week out or win week in week out. It doesn't make them not great football teams.
They're still great.
They're still great,
teams.
but they fail, and then they succeed, and then they fail, and then they succeed. And I think the narrative now is artists get bigger and bigger and bigger, and they have more hits and more hits and more hits. But like, you don't know about the times that I've failed because of how many times I've succeeded. But I could.
Damn. That's a line right there.
But there's so many times that I've felt for you to be where you are now. You've had so many roadblocks, so many roadblocks. But no one sees that because they see you as Nessa on Hot 97. You're flying, you're doing MTV, and you're doing this and you're doing this. But like to get there, it's not an easy road. So accept that the failures come, and that's actually part of the journey. And actually, weirdly, when you succeed, you don't actually feel anything. It's more when you pick yourself back up and you dust yourself off and you go, I can do this. And then when you succeed, you go, oh, cool. Next thing, you know? You don't.
What's next?
You don't learn any. When you got this job, you probably you went, and then you went, oh, cool. Now the real hard work begins.
Yes.
And then you. It's not like you finish, pop a bottle of champagne, you go, right, I'm retiring. I've just got my dream job. I'm off. That's it. I'm done. You know.
It keeps going.
Yeah.
I love that. Ooh, that Ed, that was a whole.
Thank you.
That's important. You know, you make it look so easy. So I appreciate you being honest about that.
Thank you.
The hard work matters. The grind
Always.
matters. It's what people don't see.
And no one sees it.
That's right.
But you know you've done it. No one can chat to me now. No one can say I don't deserve this. You know, if anything happens, I know what I've done. So there's no imposter syndrome with me. And people always say like, oh, did you expect to get this big? And it's like, I didn't expect to get this big, but now I am. I don't question it because I know that it happened for a reason.
And I know you don't think you're in the in crowd, but you are. And I appreciate you taking the time to hang out with us, who's
Thank
not in the
you.
in crowd.
Thank you.
And I don't.
Well, thank you for having me on my first time on Hot 97.
Of
It's an
course,
honor.
absolutely.
Honor.
And I appreciate you so much. But DJ Walla had one question for you because he's the toxic guy in our show.
Okay.
He wanted to ask you something. If you have any advice for him now, he took some lyrics from your songs. He said, the club isn't the best place to find a lover, so the bar is where I go.
Yeah.
Walla's having a hard time at the club and at the bar.
So this is the thing, man. If you're at the club, right, you can't hear over the music, so you can't talk to anyone. So how are you meant to have a decent conversation? If you actually want to find someone to spend the rest of your life with,
That's right.
It's not about the look, it's about the conversation. Because you know what? Looks fade. Conversation never fades. If someone's got good chat and good eyes, you're in for life. My grandmother always said to me, like, the eyes never ever get old. Everything around the eyes gets old, and the conversation and the sense of humor, that never ever gets old. So
Ooh.
that's why I say the club's not the best place. Also, I don't want to pay £15 for a pint of beer.
Right.
Like I want to go to a bar. I want to get a £4 pint. And do you know what? What's a really really good place for a first date is like interactive stuff. Take her to a pottery class. You know.
Listen to that, Walla.
You know, so you have something to chat about, or you go and do an art class, or you go to miniature golf, or you go and like they're the best places to go and date. But in terms of finding a lover, I don't know. There's the app. You can go and Raya.
Yeah, there's the app now. But Ed, I feel like Walla needs a little bit more help because he doesn't want to pay on the first date. He doesn't even.
Yeah, fair play though. Split.
Well, Ed, I just want you to know. He's gonna hold this now all day.
Man, I think that's almost that's. I think now as a we go, but my wife will buy me dinner, so we go out. But I think on the first date, you truly know whether you're going to be with someone if you can be honest and be like, yeah, let's split. Next date, treat her or him, I think split.
Split. Oh,
Why not?
Walla's so happy now. And you just put a battery in his back.
Why not?
He is, oh, God.
Why not? I think it's weird to assume that one of you has to pay. I think if you're going out for a meal with a mate, you'd split. So if it's the first time, I think the second date though, you gotta
Step it up.
You gotta go ham the second date. You gotta go like Hakkasan or Nobu or something like that. But the first date, go to like a taco bar, split. But just make sure the conversation's there.
Yeah.
The conversation's there, and there's an activity around it.
Pottery.
Yeah,
I love
pottery. Yeah, be fun. I guarantee if you take someone to a pottery class, and then to a taco bar, and it's good conversation, and at the end of the night you say let's split. They'll remember the date and not the split thing.
Yes.